Every time I think about a run I could do in Skyrim, I think about what kind of weapon I should use to make it more interesting. And this time I thought, why not all of them? So I asked myself, can you beat Skyrim with every weapon you find? My criteria were, I have to use a weapon if it either kills an enemy that is using it or if I find it around, and I cannot use the previous weapon I was using. I have to fight all hostile enemies and I obviously have to take all the weapons. I considered something a weapon if I found it in the weapon section of the menu. This means that a torch isn't a weapon even though it can deal damage like a weapon. If an enemy has more than one weapon in their inventory, I took the one they were using at the moment of death. With this out of the way, let's get started. I chose an orc because their power could get me out of sticky situations when I have a bad weapon. I was being executed and couldn't help but notice that nice axe the guy has. I avoid being beheaded and I can escape, but my hands are bound so I can't fight or take weapons for now. I will be playing on the Adept difficulty, so it's a bit more of a challenge. Adept is the normal difficulty if you are like me and never remember how they're called. As soon as my hands are free, I can equip an iron axe and we can get started. I take down the first enemy, take their Imperial Sword, and the second one falls, also with an Imperial Sword. The next enemies have in order Imperial Sword, Iron Mace, Steel Dagger. There is another mace around, so I take it and use it. Now there are 4 more Imperial Swords in a row. Some of them start with the bow, but as long as you are near them, they use the sword. The remaining enemies are spiders and a bear. Luckily, Ralofs gives me a bow to fight the bear, and I can assure you that being forced to use bow will be my demise this run. Anyway, we are out safe. The hardest fight so far is a couple of wolves. The bow in close quarter is literally useless. Oh no, I don't want to do a bow only run. Please don't ask for the bow only run. I arrive at Riverwood, but there are no enemies here, so it's not important. I walk towards Whiterun and there is only a wolf on the road, so I have to stick to the bow. The Jarl gives me a steel armor and sends me on a mission to retrieve a stone. I want to talk a second about how I made it in this video. At first I wanted to list every weapon and every enemy, but I think it will get boring fast and is a hassle to do properly. So I will only show every kill without saying it out loud, so that you can be sure I used every weapon and you will be able to see what weapon the enemies have. And if I find one around not on a body, I will say it. Let me know in the comments if you think this works or not, or any other suggestions you can have. This is post-production Francis talking. I'm a couple of hours deep into the editing and this is taking way more time than I imagined, both in the editing and in the actual video. I decided to put music to fill the gaps, but this has become the longest kill montage Skyrim video ever instead of a normal can you beat video. I'm not going to check if it actually is the longest or not, but I will use this as clickbait. My personal choice would be to listen to either Corpse's music or pagan metal during these montage parts, but I use Skyrim's music for copyright reasons. Now that this is out of the way, I can finish the dungeon, and I can actually use an enchanted mace in the chest near the boss, since it's a weapon I found, so it's an easy fight. I get back stone in hand, and I have to fight a dragon. Luckily I have an enchanted sword, and the town guard does most of the work. The fight is pretty easy, and I check if the dragon has weapons, but he only ate an armor. I get back to the Jarl, and he gifts me an axe. Guess I have to use it now. People were talking about me being the chosen one or something, but there weren't weapons around and I wasn't interested. Now I have to get on top of a mountain to meet some guys. On the way there I have to kill some wolves with the axe. Here is the first little roadblock of the run. I have to fight a troll, he is tough and my axe is pretty bad. I tried to avoid using the orc power at first, but after being whacked a couple of times I give up. Use the power and some potions and win the fight. I meet the wise folks, but they aren't talking about weapons, so I don't care. What I need to know is that I have to find a horn in a dungeon. I hope there will be weapons there. I reach the dungeon and I get attacked outside, but they go down pretty easily. Inside I find a steel axe and I get to use a staff. You can clearly see that staffs are in the weapon part of the inventory. In this first part there are some mages and most of them have an iron dagger in their inventory. Since I have to use a weapon I took it, even if they didn't have it equipped at the time of death. The second part of the dungeon instead is filled with Drogr that basically alternate three weapons one another. It wasn't that big of a deal, apart from the section with skeletons that only have bows. Also there were some spiders, but no weapon, no matter. I found out that the horn was stolen before I could. But wait, there's a message. What does it say? Subscribe to Plateau Peak? I wonder what they meant with that. Also in the back the thief left their location. On the way there, a couple of cultists attack me. I take their weapons and meet the person that stole the horn. We decide to go and kill a dragon together. My weapon is a steel dagger at the moment, so it's going to be fun. We see that the dragon is being revived by another dragon, and I start stabbing the former with my knife. It actually isn't that bad, mostly because the orc rage doubles the damage I deal and halves the one I take. I have to use a couple of potions, and with Delphine's help, the dragon falls. Our next step is infiltrating an embassy, and by our I mean mine, since I will be going there alone. But embassy equals armed guards, and armed guards equal weapons, so I'm cool with it. I get inside the embassy and I have to make my way through enemies sword in hand, or bow in hand for the most part. There are a lot of enemies, but it isn't that hard, mostly because the orc power is incredibly good. Also, apart from bows and daggers, the other weapons these elves have are pretty strong. I have to fight the troll at the end with the steel axe I found around, but I can use the orc power and he falls to the ground. Did they say I used the orc power in this part? We discovered that the elves knew nothing, so now the plan is to find an old friend of Delphine. I want to point out that I met her like 3 days ago, and I am saving her long lost friend while slaughtering a whole embassy. Is it considered simping? This friend is in the sewers of Riften. In the first part I have to fight bandits, but they are mostly one at a time, so no problem. In the second part there are elves that can be dangerous because the first one is a mage, and I have to use his useless dagger against the second guy, while in a 3 versus 1 situation. I managed to do it, find Esbern, and we escape together after killing another couple of elves, and a girl that sometimes is aggressive and sometimes isn't, and I still have to figure out why. Next step is to find a shout to defeat Alduin, the big bad dragon. I think it can be considered a weapon, so I'm listening. We have to go to an ancient temple. There is an enemy camp outside the entrance, and when we arrive there are also 2 dragons attacking everybody. But we can simply enter the cave and nobody follows us. Inside there are a couple of foes, but we take them out and we are in the clear. Wait, what do you mean I said I would kill all hostile characters? Did I say that? Well, I guess I go outside and fight them. Jokes aside, I completely forgot that I set this rule, and I only noticed after the run ended. So I loaded a previous save and cleared the outside zone. There may be a couple of things differing from the rest of the run, like the last weapon I have and maybe food or potions, and I'm sorry about that. Also, I decided to dual wield weapons if I took them from dual wielding opponents. It's a little thing, but I didn't consider it until this moment. We get to the center of the temple and I was really happy to find Dragon's Bane, a special weapon that deals tons of damage against, well, dragons, because I thought that my next fight would be against Alduin. It didn't occur to me that there are something like 2 hours of gameplay to get to that fight. But anyway, I had to fight a couple of raids to get on top of a mountain where a dragon tells me that I have to find an Elder Scroll in order to learn the shout. But first he wants me to attack him with the shout, and as always we don't consider this as a thing that fails the run, because it's mandatory. To get the Elder Scroll I have to, obviously, find a guy in a nice cave that gives me a device and points me towards a dwarven ruin. No questions asked. I also got attacked by an assassin on my way there. At first, there are some spider workers. They deal way more damage than I do. I then meet a cat guy. I mean, it's not a cat girl, but you can't always have everything. And I find a pickaxe shortly after. A couple of enemies later, I find a warhammer in a chest, and this simplifies things. I no longer have to constantly use the Orc Rage, not for the next 2 minutes at least. The ruin is probably the hardest part in this run. There are a lot of bad weapons around, like iron knives and pickaxes. The enemies in the first part are tough and don't have weapons on them, and the second parts are even tougher. The orc power is the only thing that lets me push through. I find the Thalmor, basically blind elves that like poison, and their weapons are not as good aside from maybe the sword. As always, bows are useless and the lightning staff is even worse. After some trials, a lot of orc power and some potions, I managed to get past them and I have to fight the centurion with a sword. After that bloodbath, this is the easy part. Right after the centurion there are 2 guys fighting. They die. Now there is all the Black Reach part that I usually skip because it's pretty boring as you simply have to walk. But this time I'm forced to fight. The first battle sphere is the enemy I died to the most, but apart from that there are basically only Thalmor and Chorus. If you take it slowly, it's not that hard. I can finally reach the scroll. I check if there are any weapons around, and that guy has a steel dagger on him. I guess I will have to fight Alduin with one of the worst weapons possible. Lucky me. If you see the amount of potions or food I have changed, is because I am buying them and I am not showing it. Just a heads up. Now I can read the scroll, learn the shout in a cutscene, and have a long fight with Alduin. And by long, I mean actually long, thanks that guy with a dagger. I even popped some potions to enhance one-handed combat, but they are not that useful. Whining aside, I managed to win, but Alduin simply flies away and I have to find a way to get to him. That way is trapping another dragon in a castle that has a device to trap dragons. In order to use said device, I have to call a peace council, but nobody really cares about this part of the game. I call the dragon and trap him. In the meantime, he killed a guard, so I have to take their weapon, and I think it's pretty clear what was equipped. I convince the dragon to bring me to Alduin's location, and only the last dungeon separates me from victory now. And I have to use a bow. I died many times here, so I am showing you only the final one. First, I have to be near enemies with a bow so that they will take out their axe and use that instead. Then I have to use the orc power to defeat most enemies, and thus I have to wait 24 hours every time I get the chance to. The true dragons here are not that big of a deal, but I still have to use caution. Isolating the enemies and engaging in one-on-one combat is what let me get inside. When inside, it's basically the same thing. I can't rush ahead and I have to slowly kill everybody, while waiting 24 hours between every combat. There are better and worse weapons, but they are all usable, and as long as I avoid bows, it's not that hard. I just have to be patient. Also, for some reason the Drogue with the diamond claw is very weak. Not sure why. Outside I have to defeat a couple more Drogue, and then there is the Dragon Priest. For some reason this guy starts the fight with 60% health. In other runs he started with something more, and if you know the reason, please let me know in the comments down below. What happens here is that the priest takes the staff and doing that closes the portal to Sovngarde, then tries to kill me with said staff by summoning enemies. When he dies, you have to take his staff, place it back where it was, and enter the portal. The problem is that the staff was his weapon, and I lose it if I want to open the portal. This is why I decided to fight Alduin bare hands. Also, I don't think this breaks the run, because it is literally the worst weapon possible. Turns out that the weapon I was looking for was me all along. Now to proceed I have to prove I'm worthy, so I get into a fist fight with Sun. I try to point out to him that it is not very honorable to use an axe in a boxing match, but he doesn't seem to care. I win anyway and get to meet the old heroes of Skyrim, and we go all together to defeat Alduin. The fact that I deal basically no damage isn't relevant because the other three are quite strong and do most of the work. Turns out that the real weapon was the friendship we made along the way. And with that, I will say that you can beat Skyrim with every weapon you find. If you did this challenge yourselves, let me know how it went in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like or even subscribe. I see you next time. Well, you'll see me. See the video at least. Why do I always mess up the outro?